Get ready. It's time for the Me and Jesse podcast with Mark Pavlich and Jesse Martineau.
And you know what? It's Monday. It's 5 p.m. And we're on the internet.
Yeah, we're live.
We're live.
Like that.
Notification on the phone just binged.
Boom.
Hopefully everybody else out there watching, their notifications binged.
Correct. Let me see.
And have we done a show since we did? But we off our inaugural fight, which we commentated, with rave reviews, mind you.
You see this finger going up?
Yes.
That was the Doppler radar on our show.
Yes.
Boom.
Yes.
Oh,
and
right
also on all fight promotions from henceforth, whatever we go on.
Yes.
The ratings go up.
Go up.
Yeah.
Don't matter who you have on the fight card. Eddie Hearn.
Yeah, no,
Eddie Hearn. Just
Joe from 68th Street versus Rob down there at the old bingo hall.
Yeah.
You put us down there commentating.
Don't matter.
You're gonna get some ratings.
Doesn't matter.
If you missed it, Mark and I commentated live on Fight TV, and there's a rumor that there's another one coming.
November.
Oh, well, that's good to know.
November.
Too.
But if listen, if there's a fight card in Germany, or there's a fight card somewhere in Denmark or in Australia, me and Jesse will come.
Yeah.
No problem. Throw the mask on. We're coming. Done. We'll sit down. Well, it doesn't matter who's on your fight card. Doesn't matter.
Nope. Doesn't matter at all.
Ratings go up.
I'm not going to Russia though.
Well, see, I would like to. I would like to.
I would too.
Yeah, me too.
Nice St. Petersburg fight.
Oh, could you imagine?
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
Moscow would have shut down the square, set up a ring in the square in Moscow.
Could you imagine?
We'll do one there.
Yeah. Definitely.
Well, everybody, welcome to the show. This is Me and Jesse podcast. As always, the most important 60 minutes you'll ever spend on the internet, especially in the sports world. There's lots of sports stuff going on. We have a great guest today, and we'll get to him once he calls in there, and we'll fire him in there. But lots of stuff going on in sports. Obviously, NFL season starts, which I'm the most jacked about. Me and Mark are we're the most excited about this. This is the reason for sports. 17
weeks, 18 weeks now of
plus playoffs.
Plus playoffs, hopefully, is the euphoric time for us. And my team right now is 3-0, which is surprising to me. So I am not going to trash talk.
I had them going 2-2 after the first four.
Yeah, I had them 1-3. So I'm elated right now, and
so
we'll see how it
basically
goes.
I'm only if they lose next week, I'm only one off my projection, which still means there's a possibility that they finish
the way you said
8 and 9.
Yeah.
Do you think that's possible now?
I'm not saying a word. I'm not jinxing nothing. I said 10-7, so let's hope so. Hopefully it'll be better. But I said 10-7 as a fan.
Well, it doesn't hurt that the Chiefs are 1-2 in your division,
which nobody thought that was going to happen, right? So, and you know what I said it the other day. I said, what's great about the Chiefs only going losing their first game in September, losing their second. Exactly. Hey, yeah,
well,
sure.
Good.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Oh
I could give a. I hate Casey. I can't stand Mahomes. I can't stand any of them. Raider Nation for life. Bounce, Casey. 1-2. Boom.
Crazy games though. I am, and on my dynasty team I have Hebert. I call him Hebert. Herbert.
Our guest is saying the link is not working.
It's not working. Oh my gosh! Tell him to click it.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, I got Herbert, and he's awesome. I love him. What we'll do is we'll take a quick break, and we'll come back with our guest. How about that?
Yes, great idea.
Stay tuned, everybody.
Get ready. It's time for the Me and Jesse podcast with Mark Pavlich and Jesse Martineau. Get ready. It's time for the Me and Jesse podcast with Mark Pavlich and Jesse Martineau.
Welcome back, everybody. In our studio today, the one and only, one of my favorite fighters of all time, super easy, and I was very excited to have him on the show today, Marcus Davis. And everybody, if this is must-see TV, which means when he's on, when he used to fight, we used to, like Mike Tyson, we used to run to go and watch. And Marcus, I hope you knew that about your career. We all ran to go watch you fight.
Oh, that's awesome to say that. I never thought of myself like that, but
yeah, well, you were.
I appreciate that. That's a huge compliment. I certainly did not ever think of myself as I was a huge Mike Tyson fan. Although sure. I will say I did bite somebody's ear off well before he bit Holyfield's ear off.
No. Come on, tell us the story of that one.
Yes.
Eighth grade, I did it.
Wow.
So in eighth grade, I had a kid that tried to pull that hockey fight thing where, because we live in Maine.
Yes.
So it's all the snow on the ground and everything. And he grabbed my jacket, tried to pull it over my head.
Yep.
To start punching me. And as he pulled the jacket over my head, I pulled him inside the jacket. So we both got stuck in my jacket and we fell on the ground. And the principal came over to try to break it up, the vice principal actually, to try to break it up. And the only thing I could get was his ear because it was stuck in my coat. And so I just muckled right a hole of that ear and just started tearing on it. And then, so that got a pretty good reputation in school as I entered high school, as I was the I might have been a small kid that you might be able to beat up, but you might be missing a piece of your body the next day. So,
well, let's jump into that because it sounds like your childhood growing up was kind of rough.
Yeah, it was very, very rough, very dysfunctional. I was your typical fighter story. I had a single parent home. My father was an abusive dirtbag. He, abused my brother and I had different fathers. I had an older brother who was 6 years older than I was. And then my mom, had a real horrible relationship with his father, got divorced, met my father. My father then started beating her and beating my brother on a constant basis. And then my mother was good enough to run away with me and my brother when I was about 4. And then from there, she tried to raise 2 boys on her own that were were constantly fighting. So, and you know, when your brother is 6 years older than you are, you're pretty much on the losing end for a long time.
Yeah.
So when you're right 6 and they're 12, you're 12, they're 18. There's a pretty big difference there. And so, and he blamed me obviously for a lot of the stuff that happened from my father to him. And it just was a really, really messed up how, just things were. And as I got older, when I got to be about 14, I was kicked out of the house and I was living on the streets, and I ended up moving in with a family from Laos. So I lived with these refugees for a long time. And then after that, I ended up on the streets again. And then I got arrested so many times for fighting that I got put in the Maine youth center. And the cops that were arresting me said, hey, listen, if you stop fighting on the street, we'll actually pay for you to box. We'll, travel and you can win the police athletic league.
Wow.
So I started fighting for the police athletic league. And then, after I'd done that, because I was like 14 when it started, by the time I was 18, they had all become like father figures, and I ended up going to the police academy.
Wow.
And so it was a complete turnaround. And then I ended up signing a professional boxing contract during that whole time, and I moved to Boston and started fighting.
Wow, that's incredible.
Wow.
Oh
wow.
Gosh. How do you, as you're a kid and dealing with all that, what was it about fighting? Was it just because there was all the anger in there, or was it the only thing you could relate to? Like,
I think it had a lot of different components. I don't think it was one thing. My grandfather was a very well-known local celebrity boxer. He was a professional boxer. He had 50 professional boxing fights and never actually lost one.
Wow.
So, and he was really smart, because rather than continuing to fight, because there wasn't a whole lot of money at that time, especially where he was fighting out of, fighting out of Maine.
Yeah, exactly.
So a lot of attraction, not a lot of competition, but he used it as a salesman. So he became like this unbelievable salesman, and ended up selling meat of all things, but ended up doing really well for himself and his family. So I grew up hearing all this stuff all the time, like, oh, you're Kenneth Thayer's boy. And actually his real last name was McKinnon. So my family was originally, they left Scotland. They left Scotland and then went to Ireland, and then they left Ireland and then ended up crossing the border of Canada, I think in 1908. And then after they crossed the border, they went into Maine, and then they started the potato farming and everything in Maine. That's where I grew up.
Do you ever see yourself like when I've because you fought in my show twice, right?
Yeah.
And as time went on, I really looked at you as like after your career in MMA, boxing, and the rest of it. And I know it's probably not in your personality range, but I think you would be fantastic at it. Why you don't get into acting? like honestly, like, the Gangs of New York and these type of roles, like most people would attribute you from Boston and not from Maine. I know you're from Maine, right? But
exactly.
But 99% of people are like, he's a Boston. Like, I guarantee the people of Boston, they've already claimed you. Am I right? Like, and the people of Maine have claimed you. But anybody in Boston will tell you, any Red Sox fan, any Celtic fan, any Bruin fan, I'll go, hey, where's Marcus Davis from? Oh, he's from Boston. Of course he is. And I'm like, it's crazy, because even I have friends in Boston. I'm like, hey, do you know Marcus Davis is not from Boston? Eh? He's from Maine. And they're like, no, he's from Boston. They're arguing with me. I go, he's on the show today. I'm telling you, he's from Maine. But you never saw yourself as doing acting things?
Well, I really didn't, it's never come up, there was, which is weird. There was one time I got contacted from what would you call it? Like a small, these people that had written a movie called, trying to think of what the name of the movie was. But it was basically kind of, it was called Office Brawl. And what it was this movie that was based on these guys that were, competing for this position. and they had this crazy boss that was like, you know what, I'm going to make you guys have an MMA fight to win the position. So this guy he wants to, learn how to fight, and he's in Boston. So he ends up going and finding me to train him. And so anyways, they talked to me about doing this movie, and it came pretty close to me doing it. But I think something happened with the funding or whatever, but that's the only time I ever really
well, someone else saw it too then. That's interesting.
Yeah, no, because listen, there's no secret. I have an eye for talent, regardless if it's fighting or whatever. But seriously, I always thought that. I'm like, why isn't Marcus doing like some really cool acting stuff? Like Gangs in New York or something like that. Like you would just fit in like perfect. You'd be the reincarnation of Mickey Rourke. Like that would be. It would be like that.
Yeah, I definitely have. I can, say things like. I hate you so fucking hard. I feel like I parked a car in your chest.
Exactly. And no one's gonna say that's from Maine. No one. No one.
So when I moved here to North Carolina, this is a true story.
Can you imagine that? That's right.
So I live in North Carolina now. 6 years ago, I moved here. Wow. I went into I was at this hospital, and I was talking to the lady behind the counter. So I'm sitting there and I'm telling her all this stuff, and I'm like, oh, this is what's going on. This is what's going on. She stops. She looks at me and she goes, "I'm sorry, sir. I didn't understand a word you said. Let me go get somebody." So I literally needed an interpreter for her to be able to understand me. And so, like maybe a year ago, I was here at my job at Tap Out Fitness here in Raleigh. And I said to my students, hey, it's taken me like 5 years to get rid of this New England accent. And they all just started laughing. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And they're like, you didn't get rid of it. You're like, you're barely legible. Like you could barely say anything that you're talking about. And then I always find myself, I like the other day I was teaching, and I go, I'm going to teach you guys the arm and guillotine. And they go, what? I go, I'm going to teach you the almond guillotine. And they go, what's an almond? And I go, oh, fuck. Arm in guillotine. Arm in guillotine. Not the almond. It's a different thing. The almond's the different thing.
It rubs off on you, though, that place, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
What was it about Boston that you just that just became a part of you?
Well, it's just that, I lived there for a while. And all of like my really close friends that I had too were either from there or, it's kind of, a lot of things are very similar. Like, Maine and Boston, depending on where you're growing up in Maine. Like, so if you're in a certain area, they're talking like, yeah, okay. That kind of thing, but if you're like from like, at least Bangor or Portland area, you talk more like somebody from Boston.
Yeah,
that's
okay.
right. Yeah,
talk more like that.
That East Coast type thing.
So you're coming out of retirement soon in November, right? And
yes,
you're gonna do one last fight.
Maybe more than one, but I'm definitely.
Oh, okay,
really?
Okay.
So possibility that I may be doing more than one.
What's the thing in your head that's making you do that? Like, why do you say that?
So this is what basically happened. I've had no desire to return back to fight. I'm just being honest with everybody. Like there was nothing pushing me that wanted me to do this. Because I fought for so long, I fought for like 22 years as a pro, and I fought from age, 18, 19 to 40. I'm 48 now. Yeah. At the end of my career, I was not the same person that I was, at age 35. Those last 5 years of my career, I was in really, really bad shape. Like, as far as I had lower lumbar fascia syndrome, I had spinal stenosis, I had bulging discs at C5, C7, and 8. I had torn my retina in my eye. I had superior oblique muscle palsy, third cranial nerve palsy. I can go on and on and on. So I had all these things that just added up, and then it just got worse because I just never stopped. Like I didn't stop training. I didn't stop fighting. And I kept thinking, you know what, if I work through it, I'll be good. If I work through it, I'll be good. And I just didn't. It was bad and it got worse. And so there were so many things that happened at the end of my career that I felt like if I had been healthy, I definitely would have won like the majority of these fights.
Yeah.
And it was
how that must be like ridiculously frustrating for you when you see, like, I know your record very well. And so there were certain fights, what you just said there, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but this is in my head, and this was in my head all day today. Like how ridiculously frustrating that must be for you at the level that you're at. And there's certain guys that you look on your record and you go, oh, for Christ's sakes, man. Like, how did I lose that guy? Like, like really. And I know your record because I went through it back in the day. And I was like, there was a section of your record. You had a 9-fight win streak. Okay. There was 9 fights where you just went
13.
Was it 13 at the end, right?
13 went on my way back into the UFC. It was I won 13 fights in a row. Yeah,
that's right. And during that 13-year period, 13-fight period, I can guarantee you felt pretty good. You know what I mean? Because you went ba-bang, 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 ba-bang. And then all of a sudden you go win, loss, win, loss, win. And that only tells me one thing. You're injured. You're not feeling right. And I don't know if anybody else in the world was watching that or seen that. But I'm saying to you, how frustrating is that for you to look back on that?
Yeah, it's really frustrating. I dealt with it. I lived with it. And I kind of, at the end, I was able to kind of just let it go. And so after doing that and doing the things that I've done, like, I got an education and I focused my priorities elsewhere. I didn't stay, like some guys have a hard time, like their identity is that they're a fighter. That's their identity. And although that was part of my identity, it's not really everything who I was. I thought of myself more of as a husband and a father as the most important thing. And then because that became more important, it was easier for me to kind of walk away from the fight game and refocus myself and have to make a living, outside of fighting. And there's a lot of crazy shit that happened too, that would just blow your minds if you heard what happened after when I first left MMA, because some real crazy shit happened. But that's what I did. And then after being here in North Carolina the last 6 years and focusing, and my education that I got was on biomechanics and physiology and stuff. So when I started learning that and then going through and finding the things that were the issues that I had and then being able to treat myself and doing the things that I needed to do, I brought myself right back to like how I, like no problems, and I had some surgery done for my eye and all that and had all that corrected. And so, and then training. So I train the number 1 ranked, both bantamweight and featherweight here in North Carolina. And then when I left fighting, I took over Tim Boach's training, and he was still fighting in the UFC. And then I had a bunch of other people that I was training. So I ended up, sparring with Tim a lot and sparring with all these guys and working with and the feedback I was getting from everybody was like, oh man, imagine if you were still fighting now. Imagine if you were doing this now. And it was like, holy crap, I can't believe how much better you got. And like, even when I returned back to Maine and I did a little bit of sparring back there after I'd been gone for a while, people were like, you're not even the same guy. Like, you're even better than you were before and so when I kept hearing that and everything, this promoter from Primal Fight Championship, she continuously was, Caitlin was continuously sending me messages on Facebook saying, I want you to fight for me. I wanted you to fight for me. Wow. And this was happening, like, when I say her messaging me, like the first year after I retired. And she just didn't stop. She did this like for 6 years.
Oh, wow.
She did this.
Relentless.
And then finally I said, all right, I'll do it. And, and scared her with this giant number that it would take to get me to come back and fight. And, 'cause that's how you do it. Right. So, and then we just went back and forth until we came up to something we both thought was fair and agreed upon that.
Sure.
And that was it. That's how we put this together. And just been, rather than training harder, I'm just training a lot smarter.
Would you say how do you feel compared to back then?
Well, health-wise, it's completely different. And I could bring in, there's a group of young guys out there I could bring in here and tell you that I smash all of them, that I outwork them, that I will go, and this, a lot of people talk a lot of bullshit when it comes to this stuff, but I am the last one every single time. I am the last one that's going to get off that mat. Even now. So, and I'll do round after round after round and just not get tired. And they're always like, how do you not get tired? And it's just because, this is all I've done for so long that my body's gotten used to it, but now my body's healthy and I've treated it. And then, as far as my, my diet, my nutrition, how I train myself, I do a lot of I do a lot of mobility work. I do a lot of functional movement patterns. I don't just do your typical traditional strength and conditioning. And just do a lot of sagittal plane work. I'm working mostly in my sagittal plane and in ipsilateral and contralateral movements and stuff like that, testing my balance and keeping everything strong and and have that old man strength. So I'm 48 years old. I'm an old guy who's I don't even really I don't lift weights like traditional strength and conditioning workout, but I can even at 48 years old I can work out and rep out 315, and that's which whereas when I was when I was younger, I was doing more than that. But the whole thing is that the amount of tension that I can put on for the amount of time over, time over tension is really what strength is, whereas power is an explosive movement, moving a certain amount of weight over a certain range very quickly. I can keep that constant pressure and that push, or that pull without fatiguing. So that's a big difference for me, where I wasn't like that when I was fighting. When I was fighting, I was more of that fast twitch guy. So you know how Conor McGregor burns himself out every time he fights.
He does,
yeah. I was similar to that. I wasn't as bad, but I was more similar to a fast twitch rather than that aerobic or even that anaerobic
correct
lactic burn where the slow twitch kicks in.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Like, from that style of fighting back then to now, obviously it's changed. I mean, and what about the ring rust idea? So how do you fight that, and how do you shift from fighting the old way to fighting this way now?
Yeah, so I don't really believe in that ring rust thing. I think that comes down to the individual. So I, back in the day, another thing was, being consistent. It's hard to be consistent when you're hurt all the time.
Right.
And now, right, since, and I'm not doing a lot of sparring because, I don't need to do a lot of sparring, but when I am sparring, I'm very consistent. The things that I'm doing, I can do and manipulate people the exact same way. People are having a harder time. I'm able to be able to adjust on the fly too, where I'm not stuck in some kind of never-ending pattern and being stuck. I'm able to see things and I always say you might have great technique, but if you have a fast jab, great kicks and all that, but they're not landing, your problem's not your technique. Your problem's your tactic.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm more now inclined tactically than I was before. And the
Interesting.
reason why is because, I got to take, when I retired, I actually flew out to Greg Jackson's and trained personally under Greg and got certified. He has 3 different levels of certification. I became what's called a master coach under Greg and learned, a lot of his strategy and his tactics that he pushed. And then it just opened up my mind to go search for more. And I just kept reading and anything, from Sun Tzu Art of War to Miyamoto Musashi's Book of Five Rings to I read a great book about Genghis Khan. And so doing all this stuff on strategy and tactics has made me a smarter and much more dangerous fighter than I was before. And I don't have any stupid like thoughts that I'm even a top tier fighter. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm saying that I'm healthy and there are lots of guys out there that I can beat and that I should be able to get in there and fight. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have at least a minimum of 2. And I might even jump back into the boxing ring for one boxing match, which I haven't done since the year 2000. So it's been 21 years since.
Why Carolina? Why Carolina? Like, how do you go from Maine to Boston and then you go to Carolina? Well, because you must be like the anomaly there, like in where you are.
So really what happened? So so when I was in MMA, when I was fighting in the UFC, my friends would tell you they used to make fun of me, and because I was so cheap, I wouldn't spend money. And so when I left MMA, I left with a lot of money in my bank accounts.
I
love hearing that.
I had 3 businesses. I had 3 gyms. I had two MMA gyms and then one kind of traditional strength and conditioning, but we also worked with athletes specifically on their sport, specifically strength and conditioning for their specific
like
sport.
NFL players and stuff. Yeah.
So I was doing a lot of that stuff. And then what was great is that my wife was, she was the admissions director for like 14 hospitals. She had a 6-figure salary. And so I was like, I made it. This is it. I did what I needed to do. My kids are all in private school. I had all my kids in private school. My oldest daughter was in college, paid for all of it. And then all of a sudden, my wife got very, very ill. And she ended up losing her job. And she became basically bedridden for a while.
Wow.
And I took her to 6 different doctors. She got misdiagnosed all 6 times. I thought she was going to die. She couldn't walk. She needed a cane.
Jesus.
And I was tracking everything and I was doing a journal and she had 31 symptoms of Lyme disease. But I was told by every one of her doctors that she didn't have Lyme.
Wow.
So I ended up, you guys might know who Kevin Kearns is. Kevin Kearns So Kevin Kearns was my strength and conditioning coach. I called him and I said, listen, I need some help. My wife's, I think, dying and nobody can help me. Do you have any connections? And he said, I trained the head of disease control for Tufts University. So the guy told me that I needed to go and see a doctor who was about 2 hours away from where I lived.
Perfect.
He said, everybody in Maine's a moron when it comes to this stuff. So you need to go see this guy. So I called him and he said that he had a 6-month waiting list. And I said, if you have any cancellation, I have 2 hours to get there, I will be there. And a couple of weeks went by and they called and they said, hey, we got a cancellation. So I jumped down there, got her down there. Then we ended up finding out she did have Lyme disease. She was misdiagnosed and had Lyme disease for years.
Man. And
at this point, it had gotten into her brain and it really messed her up. So we started treatment, and because of that, no insurance, nothing would cover her. At that time, I don't know if you're familiar with it. If you ever watch a movie called Beneath Our Skin, it's on Netflix, or it used to be, and it's about how the U.S. government and everything is the CDC is a total full of nothing but scumbags.
Yeah, we're gonna watch that. I'm gonna get that for sure and watch it. 100%.
Yeah, and 14 or 11 out of the 14 people that were on the board all had current investment in the current treatment of Lyme disease, and they were taking away doctors' licenses to practice if they would not just say, yeah, all you got to do is take 2 weeks of doxycycline and you'll be fine. So this doctor ended up saving my wife's life, but she ended up having Raynaud's disease afterwards.
Wow.
So it ended up my tax write-off for that first year. Guess what my tax write-off was in my medical bills for my wife? $270,000.
Oh.
That's what I spent. We lost her job, so I don't have her job. I had to sell one of my businesses. I had to cash out my IRA. I had a Roth IRA, and I cashed that out. Paid all the penalties for it. And she had one medication she had to take, which was Rocephin, which was $1,400 a month.
Oh.
She had to take doxycycline also, and that was $300 a month. She had to take Myers cocktails, which were $90 each, but I had to pay a doctor's visit every week when she had to do that. Her doctor that she had, who was a specialist, was $200 an hour. And so any phone call, that's what you got charged if you did a phone call, because he was 2 hours away. And so anyways, it all just piled up and added up. And I owned, this big house in Maine, and I had a place in Florida. So when she ended up getting diagnosed with that, she also got diagnosed with Raynaud's, which is a unknown kind of illness that they don't know why it happens, but you end up losing all the feeling in your extremities and your fingers and your toes and stuff like that whenever rapid changes in temperature happen. Yeah. So we ended up having to leave the climate in Maine and couldn't be there. So we started first in Florida at our place, but we'd only been there and visited and stuff. We'd never actually lived there. And the schooling system was so bad. And my kids coming from being in a private school system couldn't do it. So we had family members. My wife was formerly in the Air Force, and her brother's in the Air Force. And he was staged here in North Carolina. And we went and we visited, and that was it. We were like, okay, this is where we're going to go. So we ended up coming here, and that's how, we ended up here. And then I got recruited on monster.com way back then. For Tap Out Fitness here. And I was a corrections officer too. So I was like working as a corrections officer in one of the prisons here as in operations. And so I was like, I would drive the bus and the van, or
imagine that people seeing your face in the joint. Eh? Imagine seeing your face.
They didn't even know.
Are you
kidding? Had no idea.
Wow.
No, nobody knew.
Wow.
And I didn't tell anybody, obviously. So nobody knew or anything. And the funny thing is the only times I almost got into fights were with other corrections officers. So, because they're all bad, man. It was like the system's so messed up.
Wow.
The system is just a mess.
It is.
So, I need to get out of that. And
how's your wife today? How's your wife today?
She is a lot better now. So this doctor definitely saved her life.
I'm hanging on the edge over here. I'm hanging on the edge over here, man. I'm like.
So she's much better. Like, she has some cognitive issues every now and then. It's affected her memory. And she has some real joint pain, like. And that's going to probably just be there forever because of that inflammation that once it's there, those spirochetes, they will, they just do not die. Like, they're so hard. You got to starve them. And like, if you start eating carbs or anything like that, they feed off that sugar, off that carbohydrate, and they just multiply and they get stronger. So, she ended up the Rocephin ended up rotting her gallbladder out too. So she got really, really, really sick. We didn't know, and then found out that her gallbladder was rotting from the Rocephin, from the antibiotics, So, like, we went through so much stuff, came here, but I ended up, getting rid of my homes and everything, and then, basically lost almost my whole retirement. And then I started building it back up again. And then, I did really well for a while when we first got here. And I ended up buying about 3 acres of land on the ocean, right off here, which I'm going to build on in probably the next 10 years. But, and then I got a place here, right here, about 30 minutes from Raleigh. So I don't like the city because I've lived in it, my whole life. So I live in the country right now and I love it.
Love it.
Wow.
Love it, man. Love it. Listen, I got the new movie. Forget anybody calling you about a movie. I got it for you, Marcus, already. We'll just start getting the money together. We get people watching the show, because this is, if your story is not a movie, nobody's is.
What would you say to people? Like, you've obviously gone through kid abuse, growing up, dealing with things with your wife.
Yeah, I've been
what do you say to people
twice,
today?
I've been shot at twice. I've had, I've been hit with everything you can imagine. I've hit with pint glasses, glass ashtrays when you used to be able to smoke in bars.
That's right.
I've been hit with tie irons. I got hit right in the face with a 4-prong tie iron. Everything you can imagine happened to me. But what was your question?
What would you say? What do you say? Like, what's the lesson learned? Like, what you obviously don't let this destroy you. You are thriving. You're going forward. What is the mentality? What's the mindset? What do you say to yourself? What do you say to other people if they're in the shit?
Yeah, it is, honestly, I think everything comes down to how you perceive everything. So, and the way I have perceived everything in my life is, I'm not a victim. I'm not a victim.
I love
Nothing that's ever happened to me happened to me because of somebody else. It's because I've made some bad decisions. I've either hung around with some bad kids, or maybe I made a couple of bad decisions. I've been married and divorced 3 times, twice to my wife right now.
Oh, wow.
We were married, we got divorced, we got remarried again. And I take part in every single bit of that. I've never felt like, even, you know what I mean? Like, people would say, well, what about, your abusive father? What about, I still wasn't a victim. And guess what? I showed that motherfucker later on in my life that he better not put his hands ever on my mother or me again. So, that stuff, like, that's my perspective is,
I love it.
Is that I've never thought of me, poor me. I just don't have that in me. I think that that's weak. And anybody that says,
love it. I love that.
That this happened to me is, I think that's bullshit.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I mean,
but it has more merit coming from you, Marcus,
exactly.
Because 100%, I don't care what anybody says after this, because you went through all this stuff and you're still proclaiming, I'm not a victim. You're allowed to say that. You're allowed to have that perspective. No one can say different about it because you actually experienced it, right? A full hand.
It's the weakest thing, I think.
I agree.
The second, whether you're a man or a woman, and the second you decide that you can't control your life because everything's happening to you, right? That's bullshit. It's the same way I look at, like, in tactics, right? You don't want to be you don't want to be reaction. You want to be action. The number one thing in strategy, right, is initiative. So, right, you got to be right. And if I'm first, I decide where the fight takes place, how the fight takes place, when the fight takes place. Right. And that's the way I look at it for the rest of my life is that I don't want to sit back and let life happen to me. I'm going to make life happen for me. It's just the way I think you look at it.
Marcus, you were in the UFC at a time where I guarantee you that you could call Dana White at any time and he would pick up the phone. Is it like that with you now? Is it like that still?
What do you mean? Like, could I call Dana?
I know back in the day, when you were in Boston, you were in the UFC, and I know how it was. Because I was around that time, right? I used to train Jason McDonald, and I knew that you were like tight with that whole core of Joe Silva,
right?
Dana
Joe
White,
Rogan, all those
guys, right? And they were more in awe of you at that time than you were of them. So did you have that relationship with Dana at that time, like when you were in the UFC?
I kind of did. You know, he even called me about 5 years ago. He called me, and I tried to help with the whole. I'm the one that got Maine. I'm the one that got MMA legalized in
Sanction.
Maine.
Yeah, sanction.
He got he sent his attorneys there, and the representatives all said, "Hey, thank you for coming by, but don't let the door hit you in the ass." On the way out, because they weren't interested. And then I knew that the UFC wanted to go up there, so what I did is I talked to this other guy who was a friend of mine, Chris Greeley, who was a statesman, and I had him submit a bill. And then I went in and I spoke upon the bill. And what I did is I researched. I can't remember. I think it was Columbus, Ohio, because it was the closest I could come to compare it to like Portland, Maine. And so with the population and everything, and I said, hey, this is how much tax revenue was got from this multi-million-dollar show, and then this is what the hotels pulled in. This is what the restaurants pulled in. This is how much fuel went up. Like how much fuel, the difference of what they spent in fuel compared to before the event, and like put all this numbers together. And then I went in and I talked on it, and that's all they cared about. They didn't give a shit about people's health or whatever. Want to know how much money they can make. And so after that, they actually approached me, and then they voted on it, and it got cleared. And then I actually was the first promoter ever to promote a fight in Maine.
Wow.
And then about 5 years ago, Dana called me and asked me to help them out with getting some contacts and stuff, because they were going to go into Maine and do that show. And that's the one that I went, and it was the first time that I trained Tim Boach. He
He had
a 3-fight losing streak. They were about to cut him, and he fought the kid that was undefeated at the time. What was that kid's name? He'd won the Ultimate Fighter, and a really good kickboxer. And his coach was fought in K1. And anyways, Tim ended up knocking him out.
That's right. Yeah.
They're right in one of our hometown areas there in Bangor, Maine.
Wow.
And then I got Tim. Then we went on a 3-fight winning streak and got him back up into that top 10. So
yeah, wow. Favorite fight of all time? Favorite fight of yours of all time?
It has to be the Chris Lytle fight, because of everything that went down for it. Like, my dream as a boy was to fight in Dublin, Ireland. And I thought it was never going to happen when it didn't happen in boxing. So that was a big thing. The other thing is I actually had the bird flu that night. So nobody knew. I didn't know. I didn't even cut weight. I was in my hotel room, literally hot sweats and cold sweats, and just shitting my brains out the whole time. And Mark Delagrati brought all these EMTs to my room, and they were going to try to stop me from fighting. And then which is weird, another name going to come up again, Kevin Kearns. I called Kevin Kearns and said, hey, man, I'm not doing well. This is what's going on. And he contacted this guy who had invented what's called cluster water. And what it is it's this water is a bound molecule. And he found this chemical that he could add that would break up that molecule. So when the molecule becomes clustered, it can penetrate the mitochondria cell wall a lot better. So it can rehydrate you or hydrate you faster, much more efficiently. Yeah. Right. So they sent me a whole case of that. And then the day of the fight, that night I drank half a case. And then that day I drank the rest of the case.
Wow.
And it helped pull me through the fight. And then I was sick for about 6 months after that too.
Wow.
It stayed with me.
So there's a name we should write down today is Kevin Kearns, because you brought it. Kearns, I'm writing it down right now because you've said it 3 or 4 times, and I know. And these were like in areas where it sounded like you were in dire need of that type of guidance. Yeah,
I was in Ireland and he was in Massachusetts at the time, and he got these people to overnight me a case of water.
Wow.
And wow.
Why didn't they? Mark
Kevin's
found out.
Really been like a really, really close dear friend of mine. not just when I was fighting, but afterwards. We did. He's got me a lot of gigs. Working for like Bosu. I did some stuff like if you go to Amazon, you type MMA Bosu, you'll see a picture of me and Kevin punching a Bosu. But it's a video you can get.
But you work with military. You work with military, like
yes.
And how is that? How is that? Like, what is the mindset of that? Because it's not sport fighting anymore, right? So people don't understand. People see, listen, you know, when people say you're an MMA guy, I've listened to this interview, I've known you, and what I figured out is you're a martial artist. You're a real listen, there's guys in MMA that can't say that. They just can't say that.
I know what you're saying. They're athletes. There's guys that are just athletes, and then there's guys that are martial artists.
But you are though.
I studied Jeet Kune Do for a long time too, so I did a lot of Panatukan, Silat, Eskrima, and all that. Yeah. And a lot of people don't know that, but you give me a knife and I'll kill a motherfucker with a knife. So, and that's kind of like what the stuff when I went to Quantico and was able to kind of show some stuff. They asked me just off the fly to show some stuff that I knew. And one of the head martial arts guys there came up to me and said, "Hey, where's that from? What's that from?" And I explained to him, it's a little bit of blending some of the Chinese martial arts and some of the Panatukan and the Dumog and the Silats kind of stuff. And so then they just said, "Hey, if we ever could like maybe send you overseas, would you be interested?" And I said, "Sure." And so I did that and came back here and I did some stuff here in the States. And then because of my background, being through the police academy and then being a corrections officer and stuff, then I started training 8 of the police departments here. And I'm the one of the coaches they use for what's called the NCTOA, which is the North Carolina Tactical Officers Association. So I train all the SWAT teams here for higher level, like handcuffing techniques and weapon retention and stuff like that it's a little bit different. But
because what you found out was when you had 4 cops trying to take one guy down is they still couldn't figure out how to handcuff a guy by himself when he was on crack. And what happens is how would I know this, Jesse? How would I know this, right? So what most people don't know, but what I'm saying is when I had my school back in the day, the police used to come and I used to tell them, my 14-year-old son at the time, who's now 33 or 34, I said, "You guys try to handcuff him." 14 years old, and they couldn't handcuff him, right? And I said, "Guys, no, really, be violent with him, beat him up, like take him down, put the handcuffs on." Couldn't figure it out. Then I asked the guys, I said, "Where did you guys learn your tackle? Like, where did you learn your stuff?" And you know what their answer was? They didn't. They kind of showed them. They brought in a judo instructor to teach them how to put on handcuffs on somebody. And then they realized when you watch those videos on TV now and you see they see 9 police officers trying to take down one guy, 9 police officers. And I'm not talking bad about police officers. I'm talking bad about people that they should be training them correctly. That's whose fault it is. They should be trained by people like yourself so that we don't watch on Fox News or wherever else news station, 9 guys on one guy, when basically any 2 police officers should be able to easily handcuff him if they're taught like by you.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, there's a lot of things like the things that they're not getting taught that they need to be taught.
That's right.
And it's a lot of the stuff is really the ability to develop situational awareness at a higher level than just noticing the very obvious things like, okay, wait a minute, this isn't congruous. This is not congruent movement for whatever's going on. You need to understand, or what cops need to understand is anything that they're going to do that takes any complex or fine motor skill is going to fail. So everything you need to learn is going to be all gross motor skill movement at the beginning, because anything that's going to make you have to be athletic is not going to work, because you're going to have to think quickly through that. And it just doesn't work. So being able to weaponize your flinch, to be able to take something that's more natural, like here, and just be able to kind of go into that and react out of those situations is what you're going to do. Because no matter what you do, no matter how bad you train, Mike Tyson fucking flinches. So, right? So if Mike Tyson opens up a door and a guy's standing there, he goes, "Oh Jesus," he's gonna react that way.
Correct.
So you need to be able to embrace the fact that you are going to flinch, and you just want to make sure you have a active, aggressive, a proactive flinch, not a defensive reactive flinch. So, and from there is putting in, and there's a lot of physiology that goes with that the reason why everybody flinches the same and everything, and it has to do with the outside 90-degree bend of your elbow, because that's one of the strongest ways you can put your arm. Your hands are always open. You don't flinch with a closed fist. You open your hands because it covers more surface area. Positive blood flow through the arm because your hand's not flexed, and it makes your arm stronger. There's all these other things that go along with that. And then it's about from there, not trying to use things that are going to take speed and timing and everything as far as accuracy, but it's going to be stuff that's going to be, again, gross motor skill and your ability to move through sequences that are completely natural, that aren't trying to grab a wrist. Anybody who tells you immediately that you need that you're going to grab somebody's wrist and that's going to work is going to get you killed.
Yeah.
So,
well, everybody, could you imagine when you tuned in today, right?
Yeah.
People had no idea, Marcus, no idea, because even me, where I thought I knew with all my notes and everything, I knew exactly what was inside that mind of yours. It was even more impressive live.
Yeah. You're a wealth of knowledge, man.
When I start talking, I just saw this. I was at one of the fights, and the fight doctor came over to me and he said, "Hey, are you the Irish hand grenade?" And I went, "Yeah." And he goes, "I was a big fan and everything." And I said, "Oh, okay, who are you?" And he goes, "I'm the fight doctor." And I said, "Oh, really? What's your practice?" And he said, "Oh, I'm a neurologist." And I said, "Oh man, I love neurology." And he kind of rolled his eyes and he goes, "Yeah, right. You love neurology." And I said, "No, I do." I said, right now I've actually been doing my own kind of studies and stuff, doing this stuff on trying to bypass the cognitive brain and get into that reactionary brain, where I'm trying to work on, being able to implant fine and complex motor skill by, going through and taking certain patterns and being able to use. And then I explained to him, I came up with this analogy called Claire. I said, fall in love with a girl named Claire. For the way to retain faster information and train your brain to learn faster is you have to use different parts of your brain. So your brain uses, in different areas of your brain, has creativity. That's the first one for Claire. The next one's a logical structure. So you need to be creative. You have to have a logical structure in it. If it's a random, it's not going to work, right? Next is association. So anytime that you can make an association and go, oh, wait a minute, this is like this, you already have a reference. So it's easier to learn when you already have a reference, right? The next is your imagination. So creativity and the imagination do not come from the same area of the brain. They're completely different. I can be creative and come up with a sculpture, but that doesn't mean I can imagine a story. So
interesting,
imagination. And the last one, repetition. So creativity, logical structure, association, imagination, and repetition is the fastest way that you can train yourself to learn things. And this is what I've spent the last 6 years of my time. I don't know if you heard about this either, but after I retired, I ended up competing in what's called the Toro Cup. And they asked me to compete in it. And I went against a two-time no-gi world champion who beat Saulo Ribeiro, a guy by the name of Brian Edwards.
Wow.
He's 6'4", 240 pounds. They needed him because he was the only guy that didn't have a match. Me, right? I'm 180 pounds. I agreed to go in there and go against this guy, and I finished him in 5 minutes or eight minutes in the first round. I beat him by inverted heel hook. So
wow.
nobody thought that, and this was to a guy who was much bigger than I am, and I was not a grappler. I was not known as a grappler. But when I retired, I spent all my time, and since then, I've been able to beat 2 world champions in jiu-jitsu and grappling. And that's while I've been retired. And I was not a grappler. I didn't even, people don't know this. I had never even grappled before until I was in the UFC. So when I got on the Ultimate Fighter, I hadn't even ever taken a grappling class. Wow. And then after the Ultimate Fighter, George Gurgel became like my best buddy. And I flew out there and he taught me jiu-jitsu. And that's how I started, was already in the UFC.
Wow. Well, listen, everybody. Wait, when I say Marcus Davis part 2 is coming later on this year, tune in because it's coming. Trust
Marcus, we thank you so much, man. I mean, you have an incredible story, incredible life, and just the knowledge, and we just appreciate your ability to articulate it so well.
Correct.
Because that's something that some people can't do either, but you also have the skill of articulation, and you're very good at speaking. So I mean, you should be on some show doing the commentary or something, because you have a way of breaking things down very well.
I appreciate that. It means a lot.
Everybody, do you have MarcusDavis.com? Do you have that?
So MarcusPaulDavis.com. If you go there right now, you'll be able to sign up and get ready for our release, because we're going to be releasing all this stuff come November 20th. There's going to be our big release, which is the night of my fight. We're going to be releasing everything, and you're going to be able to train personally with me. You can train. There's going to be all these different opportunities, but you'll be able to get, broken down. Right now, I'm up to 174 different regiments and training programs that I've been able to develop since I've been doing it. And they fall under, like, there's, some traditional strength training. There's some fast twitch stuff, sports specific stuff. But a lot of functional movement patterns and everything like that. Anyways, we're going to be launching MarcusPaulDavis.com. And if you go now and you sign up, you'll just be ready to receive all that information when it gets live.
Yeah, we'll share that link everywhere on all our social media, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, everywhere. Marcus, 100%, and we'll share it all the way to your fight. So we'll make sure of that.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for joining us tonight. It's been a pleasure and honor to talk to you. And,
awesome.
And until next time, man, good luck in your fight. We'll be watching and cheering for
100%. You. Take care, buddy. Take care, buddy.
Love you guys.
Thank you, man.
Bye.
Thanks, bro.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, bro. Awesome. Who knew, eh? Now we're upside down.
There we go.
Unbelievable, eh? Like, you think people watch him on the UFC all those years and they think, oh my God, look at this maniac, blah, blah, blah. Then he just spends an hour dissecting the human brain on our show. And I'm telling you, like, I knew it, man, because when he fought in my show multiple times, he was just different. You know what I mean? Like, he was just a different dude.
Right.
And that's what I want, like I those are the kind of guys that deserve what they're going to get at the end of the rainbow, and he's one of those guys. And it was just great having Marcus Davis on the show today. And tune in next week, everybody. Don't forget Crystal Glass for all your glass needs. Best glass company in the world, as far as I'm concerned. 70 years in the glass business, and fantastic organization over there. And Jesse,
well,
what are you going to do next week? You guys looking for a bye, eh? Seattle looking for a bye week or what?
No,
you guys looking for? I thought maybe you're looking for a bye.
No.
Okay, no bye, no bye. Yeah, win first, then a bye.
Yeah,
right? Okay.
Exactly. You don't want to go into a bye losing.
No, you don't. No, you don't. Well, everybody, I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. Jesse, any final words for our listeners and our watchers?
Well, I think that what he said there about his life and about
sure.
Going through abuse and all that stuff, it's like, hey, you have a choice.
Yeah.
You
I like
really
what he
do.
said.
I
love what he said.
Have a choice still. And again, like, I've been through abuse myself, and you could sit there all day blaming the perpetrator. It doesn't mean that they weren't wrong, but you can either be stuck in that or move forward. And that's a choice that you have, and I think that he's a very great example of that, and especially because it seems like his whole life there was turmoil going on.
Always,
and it would be easy to get taken out, but hey, you have a choice to keep going forward. So I think that's really important. That was a great lesson, and I look forward to hearing from him again.
Me too.
Well,
Tune in, everybody. Tune in next week, everybody. That's
Mark Pavlich. I'm Jesse Martineau. It's been the most important 60 minutes you spent on the internet. Go Seahawks. We'll see you next time, everybody.
Thanks for watching the Me and Jesse podcast. Follow us at facebook.com/meandjesse.